Hello everyone. Today we'll be looking into adjectives. They're called hyungyeongsa. So this is in page number 59 of the material given in the description box. So let's get to our lesson. So like every word in Korean, it has that is hyungyeongsa. Hyungyeongsa has a written and a spoken form. And as you already know, written is a much more formal form which you would use in things like publications or simply when you're writing. As for a spoken form, it's just the usual way you would speak Korean in usual daily conversations or in TV shows for that case. Anyways, that's the distinction between written and spoken Korean. As for adjectives, our subject today will be looking into present tense and past tense of different words. And yes, adjectives do have present tense and past tense rather than just saying was good, was not good, good. Just saying that instead of adding just a was there. I mean, the principle of how you do that, it's pretty much the same. But then it's not just was everywhere. So yeah, let's look into how you would say the negative of an adjective. So saying the negative form of an adjective can happen in two ways. So one of that is adding the negative as like at the end of the certain adjective, whatever you're planning to say or write for that case, or adding something else to the beginning of the certain adjective, whatever you're handling. So the first one is like suppose let's just take two adjectives as examples and see how things work on that. So the first one is 좋다. 좋다 means good or like, that kind of meaning. Then 많다 means many. So suppose we have 좋다 or 많다. So in both of those we have a da at the end. That is in the present tense of that. Even if it were the past tense, you would have a da at the end. But anyways, coming back to our purpose, taking the da off from the end of the adjective, add ji anta. That is, in written Korean, it would be jianta, and in spoken Korean, it would be jiana. And that is when you're talking about 반말, that is informal speech. So it's not just about written Korean and spoken Korean and just past tense and present tense. We also have formal and informal speech, as I have told time and time again. So for the written form, it would be 좋지 않다. So you're taking the 다 of the end at 좋다 and adding 지않다 at that position. So 좋지 않다. The same way, 많지 않다. So we're saying not good or don't like, that is 좋지 않다. You can also say it in another manner. It is, suppose for love, you have the opposite, hate or not loving. So you're saying hate for not loving. Like that, for not good, you would say nappada. Not good is nappada. For not liking, it's just the same thing, 좋지 않다, rather than using nappada. So nappada is just for bad. Nappada can't be used for not liking. 많지 않다, so not many. So that means little when you talk in quantity sense. and that is chokda. Chokda means little in quantity. And if it is in spoken form, it would be chuchiana, manchiana. So if you see here, I've indicated that it's pammar. If you're looking into the 존댓말 form of it, it would be 좋지 않아요. So you're adding a yo at the end. 좋지 않아요, 많지 않아요. That is a normal formal form. If you're looking for a bit more formal form, then you have 좋지 않습니다. The same way 많지 않습니다. Don't be too bothered about it, because we'll be having a class in detail about how the different forms work. That is informal, that is the formal forms. So I'm just telling this over and over again and giving you the different forms of what we are looking into at each and every step, so that you always remember that there's a side of it like that, and always understand how it behaves with different kinds of stuff. So back to our second method, that is, in the first method we was adding something to the end. Now we are seeing how it would behave when we add something to the beginning, and that is an. So to make an adjective to its negative, you will be adding an to the beginning. And 좋다 would become 안 좋다, 안 많다, 안 좋아, 안 많아. So one thing you gotta see here is most words have this kind of two-sided negative forms when it comes to Korean. But then, of course, sometimes both the forms might be commonly used, but most of the time you can see that one of the two forms are comparatively more commonly used and comparatively more accepted, even though both are correct. So when it comes to 좋다 and 많다, let's start with 많다 first. When you're talking about 많다, you wouldn't say 안 많다. 안 많다 is correct, of course, but I don't think if you're living in Korean, you would ever get to hear someone saying 안 많다. The person, if they want to express that, they would probably just say 많지 않다 or 많지 않아요, 많지 않아. They would probably just say that is the first form of negative we saw. As for 좋다, 안 좋아 is pretty commonly seen, and 좋지 않아요 isn't as common as 안 좋아, but 좋지 않아요 is also pretty much commonly used. So it's just one more common as compared to other. But then both are well used. If you are expressing your emotions, you would probably go for 안 좋아. If you're going for some other inanimate objects or the weather or things like that, you might probably go for both, like whichever comes out of your mouth at that moment. So these are some things you have to note with each different word. It's not something that you could by heart or just practice or remember. You can practice this. This is something that grows better with practice, of course. And this is something that can only grow better with practice. But then before you practice, you need to know what is right and what is not right, and what is right but not used. And that is the case for this. And as I told earlier, it's different for each and every word. So you probably need to get acquainted with the different forms of different words by engaging in Korean mass media or manuals, as I say again and again, because it is a good opportunity to try and read simple but raw Korean for yourself. And you can also find translations for that if you need, so that you can compare your understanding of the raw version to the translated version. Then again, the translated version is always not correct, but yeah, you get you get used to it and learn to go around it. So yeah, back to our lesson. When we come to the next page, we have some tables given here like this. So we had tables like this before, so it is pretty much the same. We have one table for written form and one table for spoken form, and both are for Banmar. And then we have one row for present tense and one row for past tense. Another column for positive and another column for negative. So the adjective we would be using here is parada. Parada means fast. So fast is like the different forms of fast is given here. If you're going to the written form first, parada, which is 현재, that is present tense, would change into 빨랐다. That is in positive sense. When we come to negative, it would be 빠르지 않다 or 안 빠르다. Here also, I would say 빠르지 않다 is a bit more common than 안 빠르다. Not a bit more common. I don't think I have ever heard someone saying 안 빨라. 빠르지 않다 and 빠르지 않다 also, it isn't that common. If you're saying something is not fast, you'd rather just say something is slow, and that is 느리다. And people will probably just go for 느리다 rather than going for saying not fast. So this is how you write 느리다. Coming back to 빠르다, it would be 빠르지 않았다, 안 빨랐다. Again, if you look here, you have 상시읒 as 받침 here. So that forms a pattern. So most often you can find 상시읒 as 받침 for past tense of most of the words, not just adjectives. It happens in most of the words, and you don't have weird exceptions to this rule like you have mango and mangoes in English. It doesn't go like that in Korean, so there's one thing that you don't have to worry about. As for the next table, 빨랐어. Again, you have 상시읒. Then 빠르지 않았어. 안 빨랐어. So it's all just fast, was fast, not fast, was not fast, and then the meaning just repeats. So I'll now be going into the meaning of each and everything. Then when you go down, you are given like more examples of the commonly used adjectives and how forming its different forms work. We do have some rules going on there, since it is like pretty much similar for most of the words, and we probably have just one or two exceptions if we have any when it comes to adjectives. So that'll be about the adjectives lesson. And since it is a bit too much it might be a bit too much to digest, so we will look into more of adjectives in the next class, and we will end today's class here. So as usual, try making your own sentences with 좋다, 많다, and 빠르다. Like the different forms of that, you can try putting that into sentences, and also the 느리다 and chapta that I have told you. So you have got about 5 adjectives today. You could use these 5 adjectives to form sentences, and I'll be checking all those. And as always, put in your doubts. I'll be clearing all those personally as much as possible. So we'll see each other in the next class. Thank you.